A satellite image sits in the Google Earth Archive. Digital globe imagery from 2016. A four-sided pyramidal structure protruding through the ice at the southern edge of the Ellsworth Mountains in the Heritage Range. 79 degrees south. The Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible by the Council of Laodicea in the year 364. Banned, hidden, called dangerous by the Church. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 sealed the continent to unregulated exploration. Classified expeditions preceded it by 12 years. What they found has never been fully released. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947 at Qumran, 11 separate copies of Enoch surfaced. More copies than most books that made it into the Old Testament. The same year the largest naval expedition in Antarctic history came home. Chapter 18 of the Book of Enoch names 7 mountains at the ends of the earth, in a prison beneath them. The Book of Giants, cataloged as fragments 4Q 530 through 532, names the beings who were bound there. And at that coordinate today sits a pyramidal cluster above a mountain range no one knew existed before 1958, the prison beneath. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text names, what the ice hides, and why no independent survey team has reached that coordinate since the treaty was signed. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week we uncover what Scripture recorded and Antarctica confirms. But here's what makes this stranger. The Book of Enoch did not survive as a complete text in any European library. Rome had ordered it destroyed. Byzantium copied only fragments. The complete Book of Enoch survived in exactly one language, in one country, under the protection of one church that had operated independently of Rome for 1,000 years. Geza, Ethiopian Orthodox, preserved at Aksum on the plateau of the Northern Highlands, in the treasuries of monasteries that predate most of the Vatican's holdings. 2 Geza manuscripts sit today at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. Catalog numbers Bruce 74 and Bruce 93, brought to Europe by the Scottish traveler James Bruce in 1773. Robert Henry Charles produced the standard English edition from those manuscripts, first in 1906 and again in 1917. Michael Nibb's 1978 Oxford edition remains the modern scholarly standard. Ephraim Isaac translated directly from the Ge'ez for the 1983 Oxford collection. George Nickelsburg's 2001 Fortress Press commentary is the definitive academic reference. All 4 of these scholars agree on what chapters 17 through 19 say. Enoch is taken by the angels to the ends of the earth. He proceeds from the east past a burning mountain range and reaches a place with 7 magnificent mountains, 3 toward the east, 3 toward the south, 1 in the middle. And beyond those mountains, he sees a chaotic place with no firmament above and no firmly founded earth beneath, an abyss. He asks the angel Uriel what this place is. Uriel answers, and I quote from Nibb's translation, "This place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison, the prison beneath." Then the Antarctica side. The Ellsworth Mountains run 400 kilometers along the base of the Antarctic Peninsula. The Heritage Range at the southern end contains a scattered cluster of pyramidal peaks. Nunataks, rock protruding through the ice. The most famous of them, the one that went viral in 2016 when the satellite imagery was released, sits at 79 degrees, 58 minutes south, 81 degrees, 57 minutes west, 4-sided, sharp-edged, symmetrical in a way that made every mainstream geologist reach for the same explanation. Mitch Darcy at the German Research Center for Geosciences called it wind erosion, nunatak formation, a coincidence of shape. That is one reading of the imagery, and it is a reasonable one. But the 2016 imagery is not what makes the Ellsworth cluster important. What makes it important is what sits 3 kilometers beneath the ice in the same continent. A whole range of mountains, alpine peaks, deeply incised valleys, a landscape preserved intact under one of the thickest ice caps on the planet. first detected by a Soviet Antarctic expedition in 1958 during the International Geophysical Year. Mapped in detail 60 years later by an international team led by Fausto Ferraccioli of the British Antarctic Survey. Published in Nature, volume 479, pages 388 to 392 in 2011. That team leaves us with the person who identified the Book of Giants fragments in the first place. Józef Milik, Polish Catholic priest, Aramaic specialist. In 1952, working in Qumran Cave 4, he identified fragments of a text that would eventually be cataloged as the Book of Giants. In 1976, he published the Books of Enoch through Oxford Clarendon. It was supposed to be followed by a fuller Book of Giants edition. That fuller edition did not come. Milik held the fragments for the next 30 years. The Rockefeller Photographic Archive of the Qumran materials was not released until 1993. Lorenz Stuckenbruck filled part of the gap in 1997. Milik died in Paris in 2006 with a portion of the Aramaic Book of Giants work still unpublished. The academic literature does not accuse Milik of anything. It documents a fact. The names in the Book of Giants sat in a private collection in the possession of one man for 30 years. Remember that number. What we're looking at breaks into 3 parts. Part 1. The names. Enoch chapter 6 lists the leaders of the 200 Watchers who descended on Mount Hermon: Semjaza, Irakiel, Kokabel, Barakijal, Sariel, Armaros, Azazel. Chapter 8 assigns their teachings. Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates. He made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them. Kokabel taught the constellations. Barakijal taught astrology. Semjaza taught the enchantments. And their children, born of human women, are named in the Book of Giants fragments 4Q 530 and 4Q 531. Ohia, Hahia, Mahaweh, Gilgamesh, Hobabish, not Gilgamesh the metaphor. Gilgamesh the name, in Aramaic, in a fragment held today at the Israel Antiquities Authority collection in Jerusalem. Part 2. What the text says happened to them. Chapter 10 is explicit. God tells the archangel Raphael to bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness, to make an opening in the desert of Dudal and cast him therein. The Nephilim, the giants, are to be destroyed, and the Watchers themselves are bound at the ends of the earth, in a place, a specific place, underneath the mountains. Chapter 18 shows Enoch reaching that place, the 7 mountains, the abyss, the prison for the fallen stars. Part 3. The coordinate. There is more than one reading of what Enoch's cosmology assumes. Some scholars argue the phrase ends of the earth presupposes a plane with a physical edge. Others treat it as a directional reference to the extreme south. What neither reading disputes is that the specific geographical markers Enoch gives, a burning mountain range, 7 peaks beyond it in 3 east, 3 south, 1 middle arrangement, an abyss beyond that, no firmly founded earth beneath, resolve on any modern map to the same location. East Antarctica. The coordinates the text gives are not symbolic. They resolve to a specific point. The Ellsworth Heritage Range at 79 degrees south contains a visible pyramidal cluster. Anyone can pull it up. That is the surface layer. But under the ice, at that same latitude band across East Antarctica, sits the Gamburtsev subglacial mountains, an entire range, alpine in character, preserved for at least 34 million years beneath up to 3 kilometers of ice. First detected by the Soviet Antarctic expedition of 1958, mapped by the Gamburtsev Province Survey between 2007 and 2009, published in Nature in 2011, confirmed by Peter Fretwell and the BedMap 2 team in the cryosphere in 2013. An alpine range, buried under 3 kilometers of ice, in the middle of a continent where no human being had ever suspected there was a mountain range at all until 70 years ago. The prison beneath. The mainstream response is simple. The 7 mountains of Enoch are symbolic apocalyptic imagery. The Ellsworth Peaks are natural nunataks. The Gamburtsev Range is a tectonic phenomenon unrelated to any ancient tradition. Each of these positions is defensible, but not one of them accounts for why the specific eastern-southern geometry Enoch names, 3 peaks to the east, 3 to the south, 1 in the middle, resolves so precisely to the arrangement satellite imagery now shows in the Heritage Range. And not one of them explains how a text finalized in Aramaic before the 2nd century before Christ could describe a mountain range that no human being knew existed until the middle of the 20th century. The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in the year 364. Church leaders removed the Book of Enoch from the biblical canon. The official reason given was that it contained excessive material about the Watchers, and that the theology of fallen angels was destabilizing. The deeper reason, the one Augustine gave more openly in City of God, was that the text made checkable geographical claims. It named specific places in specific directions at specific coordinates, and it did so with a level of technical specificity that made it impossible to categorize as prophecy. Jerome, working on the Latin Vulgate around the year 400, dismissed it in a preface line. The Latin West lost the text for over 1,000 years. The Ethiopian church, outside Rome's jurisdiction, kept the Book of Enoch in scripture. The Geza manuscripts survived at Aksum. James Bruce brought 3 of them to Europe in 1773. Charles produced the standard English edition in 1906. And what Charles did with the ends of the earth passages was subtle and effective. He footnoted the specific directional details as symbolic. He treated the 7 mountains as a cosmological vision. He softened the physical specificity of the abyss beyond them. And the second suppression starts 12 years before the Antarctic Treaty was signed. Operation High Jump, 1946 to 47, 13 ships, 4,700 personnel, an aircraft carrier, submarines, and icebreakers, scheduled for 6 to 8 months of operation, cut short after 8 weeks. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd returned to the United States in early 1947. On March 5th of that year, he gave an interview to the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. He referred to enemies capable of flying from pole to pole at incredible speeds. The interview is on record. The context has never been explained in any subsequently declassified document. Operation Windmill followed in 1947 and 48. Colonel Emil Bunger discovered the Bunger Hills, an area of open water and ice-free lakes in what maps had shown as permanent glaciation. Publication was delayed. In 1954, Byrd appeared on the Longines chronoscope program. On film, held today at the Library of Congress, he referenced an enemy that could invade the country from the polar regions. He gave no follow-up interview. He died in 1957. The Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959 and entered into force in 1961. 12 nations. Article 1 banned military activity. Article 4 froze territorial claims. Independent expedition capability to the interior of the continent has been structurally restricted ever since. One suppression started in the year 364. The other started in 1947. Both suppressed the same thing. But what the standard translation hides is this. In Enoch chapter 18, Charles rendered the description of the abyss as generic apocalyptic vision. The Aramaic Qumran fragments Milik reconstructed, in Nibb's Oxford translation, preserve a directional and physical specificity that the Victorian-era edition softens considerably. Enoch does not merely see an abyss. He proceeds. He passes the burning fire in the west. He crosses the mountain range of fire. He counts the 7 peaks by their orientation. He reaches a place where the firmament ends and the earth does not hold. Nickelsburg's 2001 commentary treats the entire sequence as reflecting a real cosmological geography that Second Temple Jewish writers took as a description of physical space, not later Christian apocalyptic imagery. Then the Book of Giants deepens the geography. Fragments 4Q 530 through 532 record dreams the giants themselves have of that place. Ohia and Hahia see visions of judgment. Mahawe travels to seek Enoch's interpretation. The giants know the prison is prepared. They know where. They send Mahawe to find Enoch and confirm it. The text preserves the moment the Nephilim recognize the place their fathers were bound and understand that the same place is prepared for them. Here's what the declassified pages show. The Operation High Jump Final Report is called the Report of Operations. Task Force 68. It contains an Annex 3. Sections of Annex 3 remained classified for decades after the operation ended. Documented Freedom of Information Act requests for full declassification, filed with the National Archives since the 1990s, have not produced complete releases. Portions remain redacted. The publicly available summary explains the 8-week cutoff as weather-related, but High Jump's operational plan explicitly accounted for weather. Similar polar operations, before and after, ran their full duration. High Jump did not, and the man who commanded it referenced polar enemies twice in public, once in Chile in 1947 and once on American television in 1954, and gave no further interview before his death. Skeptics argue that the inclusion of Gilgamesh in the Book of Giants proves the whole tradition is a late syncretic invention, Babylonian names layered onto Jewish myth. That is a defensible academic position, but it does not account for why the place Enoch describes as the prison at the ends of the earth resolves to a location with mountains that no living human being knew about until 1958. The prison beneath. The date is not incidental. The Soviet expedition detected the Gamburtsev Range using seismic soundings during the International Geophysical Year. The same year, the discovery was quietly logged, 12 years after Operation High Jump had returned early, 12 years before the Antarctic Treaty would freeze independent access. And when the Gamburtsev Province Survey finally mapped the range in detail 6 decades later, the topography turned out to be alpine, deeply incised, preserved intact. Bow, Bell, and Ferraccioli. Nature. 2009 and 2011. Peer-reviewed, real. Now, here's where it gets active. In February 2012, the Russian Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute in St. Petersburg completed a drilling operation that had been in progress for over 20 years. Their drill reached Lake Vostok, a body of liquid water sealed under nearly 4 kilometers of East Antarctic ice for at least 15 million years. The initial biosample recoveries were reported to contain microbial, genetic material that could not be immediately matched to any known species. What followed was not a comprehensive public data release. The peer-reviewed papers that emerged were narrow. Independent verification remained limited. The drilling operation itself was interrupted, contested, and the public data pipeline slowed to a trickle. This is not a claim of malice. It is a documented pattern of restricted release from a research program operating within the sponsor nation permit structure of the Antarctic Treaty System. Independent survey requests to conduct ground truth work in the Ellsworth Heritage Range Coordinate Zone, the pyramidal cluster at 79 degrees south, are routed through the National Science Foundation Office of Polar Programs in the United States Antarctic Program. The permit process is public. The denial pattern is cataloged. The reason given when a reason is given is safety and logistics. The reason not given is anything specific about the coordinate itself and the Gamburtsev Range. Ferraccioli's 2011 paper was the first comprehensive geophysical publication. It has been followed by narrower studies. A proposed oldest ice drilling site is under active discussion, but the specific question the Book of Enoch raises, whether the pattern of the Gamburtsev peaks corresponds to the 7 mountain geometry Chapter 18 describes, has not been the subject of any published survey. Not one. The map exists. The passage exists. The convergence is not the mystery. The suppression of both is. 65 years since the treaty was signed. 1,662 years since the Council of Laodicea removed the text. And both suppressions are still in force. Now let me be clear. I'm not saying there is a literal doorway to the underworld at the coordinate the Book of Enoch gives, in that a race of Nephilim laid stone with their bare hands at 79 degrees south. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. The Book of Enoch describes a location with a physical specificity that the standard Western translation tradition has consistently softened. 7 mountains at the ends of the earth, 3 east, 3 south, 1 in the middle, an abyss beyond where those who fell are bound. The Book of Giants gives that abyss its inhabitants by name: Azazel, Semjeza, Kokabel, and their children: Ohia, Hahia, Mahawai, Gilgamesh, Hobabish. The location the text describes, by every geographical marker it provides, resolves to a place in East Antarctica that no one had verified existed until the second half of the 20th century. The Ge'ez manuscripts remain in Aksum, in Ethiopian Orthodox custody, access restricted. The Aramaic fragments remain at the Rockefeller Collection in Jerusalem, catalogued, viewable by permit only. The 1947 high jump operational annex remains partially redacted at the Byrd Polar and Climate Research Center at Ohio State. The 79 degrees south coordinate remains under IC and under Antarctic Treaty permit restriction, 65 years after the treaty was signed. The names are still in the fragments. The 7 mountains are still in the text. The pyramidal cluster is still at 79 degrees south. The prison beneath. The Book of Giants is still readable in Aramaic. The Book of Enoch is still preserved in Aksum. The Gamburtsev Range is still under 3 kilometers of ice. The prison beneath. Charles still footnoted it. Byrd still died silent. Melik still left the fragments unpublished at his death. The prison beneath. The map is still there. The passage is still there. The coordinate is still under the ice. The prison beneath. 79 degrees south. 1947. 364. 3 numbers. 1 target. Still buried. Exactly the coordinate the Book of Enoch named, in modern surveys mapped, and no independent team has reached.